Hello and welcome to How to Be a Great Player. The beard is slowly regrowing itself, even though I've been screaming and shouting at it for the last week to grow up. But these are the things that we must face. So, we are talking what to do when the party splits up. Now, this question has been asked by several of you, and I thank you for it, because it is an interesting question. And perhaps a better way of rephrasing it is, what is the GM contract? The Game Master contract, the Narrator contract, the Storyteller contract, the Dungeon Master contract, the person who is sitting at the head of your table making up a world so that you can play in it with your character contract. The GM contract basically is an unwritten rule that is very seldom spoken about in role-playing games, but which the older veterans all know instinctively and which the younger players have to learn through trial and error and being shouted at. The GM contract is effectively the idea that the Game Master is trying his best or her best to tell you a story that involves your character and works off of the feedback that they get from you. Now, I'm not going to go into all of the aspects of the GM contract unless you really want me to. In particular, though, we're going to look at the GM contract that works around parties splitting up. Now, for you, it might make logical sense for your character to not follow the rest of the party, but to go off on their own. A rogue who wants to prove their value as being sneakish and finding out information that the warrior and the wizard don't seem to be able to find. You want to go off and explore that dungeon on your own. Or perhaps your companions are sitting in the inn and you're not particularly interested in that, so you go off to go and try and find some trouble to stir up. Perhaps the starship is busy scanning nebula and you really just want to go and chat up that bionical android that you've noticed wandering around the ship recently. Whatever the case might be, the party will invariably split up, and this is something that happens on a regular basis. A good GM knows how to manage it, and a good player knows how to handle it by following the GM contract. The GM contract states that once the party has split up, you need to disregard locations. These are not the maps you're looking for. In other words, the Game Master is desperately trying to bring 2 disparate or 3 disparate or 4 disparate, how many groups your party breaks up into, he's trying to bring them back together. Why is he trying to bring them back together? Because dogs could attack at any time. Now, barring the attack of aggressive dogs, the GM is trying to bring the party back together because it simply makes his life easier. Of course, it might not be as fun for you. Having said that, though, it is part of the game that this is a collaborative effect. It is a collaborative event. You are there to tell a story with your fellow players and with the GM. So he's trying to bring you back together again. And we're going to get onto more points on that, but he needs to be able to manipulate the maps to bring your party together in a way that is narratively interesting. If you are a million miles away from somebody else and you need to get there in a hurry, maybe under other circumstances it would take you, say, 10 hours to get there. In dramatic role-playing terms, it's going to take you 7 or 8 turns to get there, whilst your companions desperately cling on for life. You need to accept that. That's part of the contract. The GM will manipulate time to allow things to happen. Unless, of course, time is part of the whole thing, in which case then time becomes very rigid. Either way, let the GM manipulate time and maps as he needs. Don't question him on that one. You then need to be cognizant of the environment that you're in. Your character is very, very separate from the person sitting opposite you at the table. So don't talk to them whilst the GM is busy with them. A good GM should be bouncing between you and whichever section of the party you're with and the other section of the party. Whilst he is doing that, keep quiet. Listen to what's happening, or better yet, plan what you're going to do next when the GM then comes back to you. She's having a tough time juggling all sorts of things backwards and forwards. This party's doing that, this party's doing that, and she's trying to keep track of everything. Your GM might be great, but that puts a lot of strain in terms of trying to think of good story for both parties at the same time. So when she's talking to the other party, don't interrupt her. Don't ask her questions that are relevant to your characters, but not to the other party's characters. Don't ask the other party characters information. Hey, Frank, do you guys have a potion of healing? You're not there. You can't ask the player, Frank. Well, you can technically, but it's just bad manners and it violates that GM contract. Sit quietly, listen to what's going on, or better yet, plan your move for when the GM comes back to you. She'll appreciate it and the game will flow a lot faster. Now, another thing to bear in mind whilst this is happening is you are going to be hearing about events that your character has no clue on. Now, metagaming is a whole different ballgame, but in terms of split up party, it becomes critical. Listen to what's happening, and you're going to walk a fine line between metagaming and storytelling. And that fine line is, if you hear that the other party is in danger, and yet your character has decided to remain at home in the apartment, don't suddenly, when they start having a gun battle, say, oh, my character gets up and walks towards the abandoned warehouse, because that's not good role-playing. That's not good storytelling. That is metagaming. However, what you could do is throw the game master a bone. She desperately needs to bring you together because your character's the tank, and it happens to be the little scientist who's now embroiled in this massive brawl, and they're not going to survive. What you could do is say, oh, I'm bored. You know what? There was that great little bagel shop down on the corner. I'm going to go and get a bagel and get a newspaper because I've got nothing else to do. You're leaving the apartment, you're giving the game master an opportunity to go, you're outside. As you walk outside, you hear gunfire coming from the apartment opposite, or you hear this, or you see that, or a van drives past in a hurry. It's a whole bunch of cops. As they drive past the bagel shop, they come to a screeching halt. They order 4 bagels. One of the cop happens to say, gosh dang nabbit, that shootout that's just been reported down at the old abandoned warehouse certainly is something that's worth investigating. I'm going to sit and eat my bagel first, though, for at least, 10 or 15 minutes or so before I head on down there. This allows you to go, well, my character hears that, now I have a reason to go to the warehouse. I go to the warehouse. So that is the metagame storytelling part of the contract. You hear what's happening, you know what you need to do, but you give it to the GM in terms of a story. You don't just waltz straight in there knowing exactly what's going to happen. And of course, when you arrive at the warehouse, now you can be cautious because the GM has warned you. But let's say, for example, you ended up at the warehouse in some other fashion. Well, you now need to approach it as if you don't know that there's a gunfight happening unless you get given some clues by the GM. It's important to understand the difference between metagaming and storytelling. That's also part of the contract. Another thing that you need to do, and this is also part of the contract, is the GM is going to be desperately trying to bring you together. You should be desperately trying to bring the party together as well. Although a split party is fun and it allows you to bounce all over the place, you should be looking for reasons to involve the party. If you are in some kind of magical environment, there's nothing stopping you from trying to send some kind of message via pigeon or smoke signal or goblin carrier or magic whispering word to the other party, wherever they are, saying, hey, I've discovered this dungeon, I think you should come and join me. If it's a modern setting, use your cell phone or WhatsApp device and text them saying, guys, this is what I've found, I'm not moving until you get here. Try and bring the party together as much as you can. Split up, that's absolutely fine. But when things start to get serious, Don't try and be the hero. Don't say, oh, well, I come across this empty room and I think that I should just press on. I know there's traps and probably monsters or creatures in here that I can't fight on my own, but the GM must solve that. It's not my problem. I'm going to walk in. If the GM starts giving you clues, like you hear the sound of a giant creature or your scanning device reports that there are 400 life forms beyond this door, if you open it, expect your character to die. The GM may or may not have set that room up for the whole party to encounter, or perhaps it had something to do with something else that you were not supposed to get to, but you did because of whatever reason. If the GM is giving you clues saying, well, you hear noises, are you sure you want to go in there? You see 12 shadows moving around. They don't attack you yet. They appear to be watching you. Don't take it as a sign of encouragement. Pause for a moment and go, you know what? I'm actually part of a party of 5 and it's just me or it's just 2 of us. The other 3 are sitting back there because they don't have the information they need to join us. Let's go back and get it. It makes a much better story and it makes you a better player because now you're including that party in your decisions. You're starting to make them feel as if they have value. Also, one of the important things to bear in mind is that the GM is desperately trying to bring you guys together. He's trying to make it work. She is trying to tell a story. Cut them some slack. I hope this has been useful. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and keep leaving us your comments and questions on videos you'd like to hear more about. We love those comments. Until next time, happy playing.